All right, guys, Gonzo here. Here, just so you know, it's me. Okay, so this is two of our horses. This is my little Pasofino. There goes our little Arab. This is my little Pasofino Desi, my little mare. The other little bay right there is a Bureau of Land Management wild Mustang of mine. That's Hondo. Some of you who follow me around the nation doing horse clinics are well aware of those two. They're famous. And this is Chachi. That's Chachi. So we're heading out for the challenge that has been posted about making a fire when everything's wet. Everything was raining, and then we got about 7-8 inches of snow. I am heading out to the woods. I guess I could have done this in my driveway, duh. So I'm walking, as you can see, forgive the broken fence. It's a hill there, if you can see it well. And somewhere way back in there is my camp that you usually see pictures of, although it's been a little run down. So we're gonna go and take a walk through the woods. You're about to hear a train come by where I'm at on this end of the property. The tracks are fairly close, about 100 yards. So they'll blow here in a minute. But we're gonna go out. Apologize for the noise. So we're gonna follow this horse trail out to my creek, and then we're gonna navigate across the creek. Typically, there's a little tree. There's a little tree across the creek that I used to cross, but it'll be ice covered. So instead, I will, if you want to see, there's the hills. Start with my property. A lot of deer up in here. There's the rest of it. A lot of deer, a lot of coyote, tons of rabbits, a bunch of squirrels. So we're gonna make it over to the creek and decide if I'm gonna cross the tree or not. It's probably ice covered. The creek should only be about 10 inches deep. I have my wading boots on, so I'll probably just go across the water because the rocks are a little moss covered. I'd hate to slip off the tree, try to catch my footing, and then slip again, get hurt. So let's go safety first. See these fallen timbers here? Tons of rabbit there. That one right there in front of me, that one, and over there. Tons and tons of rabbits come out of there. The deer come up from that corner of my property, come down this hillside, and follow this line, come down to the creek to drink. So, let me get to the creek real quick, because I'll have to turn off this video here shortly. If you're wondering why I'm breathing hard, I've got my little pack on, plus some mess gear and full Carhartts and clothes. Look at these tracks. And trying to make it through the snow. Oh, the sun's trying to come out. It was just spitting snow. It just stopped. All right, so here's my little creek crossing. As you can see, my creek there, and it winds around over there. This is a tree we usually cross. I have balance sticks always on either side of the creek right here. We take it, we balance. But as you can see, the creek is not that deep. So today, we're just gonna go across. So let's go over here. My horses have been down here drinking. They come down to this spot and one spot further out quite a bit. So we're gonna go ahead and go through my creek. It's a deer track right there. They've been coming over. And there is what's left of the shambles of my camp. Sorry to say. So we're gonna get this fixed up. So I'm gonna turn this off here in a second, turn it back on, and we're gonna talk about the challenge that happened. Or the challenge that was made and what we're gonna do. So we'll be right back. We're just gonna go across. So let's go over here. My horses have been down here drinking. They come down to this spot and one spot further out quite a bit. So we're gonna go ahead and go through. Hi guys. Alright, so I'm here at camp and I'm about to take the challenge. Everything is soaking wet. We're about under 7 inches of snow. It had rained for about 10 hours prior to it shifting to snow, so everything is soaking wet. And I know what you're thinking. It's about 19 degrees last I checked about an hour ago. And I know what you're thinking. That yeah, he's got the wool cap and the shamag and the gloves and the Carhartts on, so yeah, naturally he can stay warm while he does this challenge. Well, it wouldn't be a challenge if I did that, now would it? So this is what I'm going to do. I do have another layer set of clothes on, so just to keep up with the challenge and maybe kick it up a little bit, how about we just shed these old Carhartts right here, right now. I've got a little turtleneck on and a shirt underneath. Like I said, it's a little windy. The precipitation has stopped, but it's a little windy, and it's 19 degrees. And if I can get out of these Carhartts, here we go, there's one, there's two. Let me dump this over here, hang tight. If you're watching the video, just hold on a minute. All right, boys and girls, I got my tarp. I had to weigh it out. Am I gonna do fire or I'm gonna do a shelter first? It's gonna be the shelter. I'll explain why when we get back, so hang tight. This is about as real as it's gonna get. 19 degrees, hang tight, boys. All right, guys. Hey, I'm back. So it took me 8 minutes to get my tent set up. Let me kind of show you what we're doing here. Hang tight. Okay, so here's my reflector and my fire pit. It's about 6-8 inches deep. My log we usually sit in. And here's my shelter. And I usually do a bipod. You can do a center pole. It's real easy. This is a 9x12 waterproof canvas drop cloth. It has that butyl backing on it. And the reason why I do that is instead of carrying a second tarp, an extra tarp, I put it long ways and I fold under and then create tie-off points as Dave Canterbury taught. And I'll do some tie-off points. And what this does is it gives me a couple things. As you can see here as we go in, by folding the back end off, it's completely airproof, so I'm not going to get any wind drafts coming in. It gives me about a 3 foot, 30 inches, I guess, 30 inches to 3 foot dry bed area that's built into the shelter. The waterproofing's on the snow side. I use this shelter all the time. But here's the great thing about this is because, let me step back a second. Okay, you see I've got this front area in front of my bedding area. I've got a few sticks of wood here. I'm already starting, a piece of bark and a bigger piece here. And so what it does is it allows me to come in here when my boots are all wet or full of snow. I can come in here and I can sit right there, hang my feet off, take my boots off, and have, in the spring when it's really muddy, I'll have a place where my muddy boots can be, but it's not on my bedding. And then in the evening while I'm sitting here, I can start to process this wood. I'll go ahead and baton it down. I'll make some kindling. I'll make a fire feather stick. I've got a piece of bark here, and I'll actually start my fire inside this shelter with my bird's nest and my char cloth, and I'll get it going out of the wind, and then I'll carry that out the 2 feet in front here to my fire pit and the reflectors. I guess it's about three feet away or so, and get my coffee started. What we don't want to do, and I'll show you kind of another view of my shelter here. What I don't want to do is wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and it's really cold and then have to start worrying about batoning wood or making feather sticks or making, I'll have my bird nest nice and dry up in the corner behind me there ready to go, and then I can just be out of the wind, out of the weather. If the wind shifts, I can actually just move my stakes and close this up a little bit, and it'll be fine. I've done it before. So that's kind of my shelter. So give me a few minutes. I'm going to get the fire started. My hands are red. I am still not wearing my Carhartts. And we're going to get things kind of going here. See if I can get some coffee done. So hang with me. I'll be right back. So you can see I'm about to start this. So here's my piece of bark. Here's my char cloth. I got a nice little ember going. So I'm gonna have to put the camera down here now and work on my bird's nest, get this fire built, move it out to the fire pit. So I'll see you in a few minutes. All right, we got the makings for start of my fire. So I'm gonna get this going again, and then we're gonna move it to there. So here we go. First, let's see what we've got here. All right. It's funny how a small little Ranger fire, some nice cocoa, a little hot tea, some warm oatmeal, all of a sudden make all the cold go away. Sun shining, not so cold anymore. I've been out here a little while. It took me about 40 minutes to get a decent little fire. Everything's so wet. I really had to baton some wood down and process a whole bunch of kindling just to get something that would ignite. So it really put me to the test. So I've got my hot coffee. I've got my American Legion and VFW magazines here for some reading. My little Ranger fire going, shelter in the background. And I'll leave you with this. Julius Caesar marched his troops from Rome all the way to the Far East Asia. And when he got there, he sent a runner back, all the way back to Rome with a very short message. And the message was this: I came, I saw, I bushcrafted. We'll see you around, gang. Oh, it's a nice day. Nice, nice day. Hi gang, Gonzo here. Hey, I decided not to cross the creek. Number one, scene safety, man. It just wasn't safe. The rocks that line my creek bed are covered with moss and extremely slippery. The water's deeper than I anticipated. That was evident about 1.5 feet into the creek. And then it's running pretty hard. So you know what, there was really no need for me to go to the creek. I was just wanting to do this video and check on my camp, but as you can see, right there, my shelter's still standing exactly how I left it on Thursday. Now this is Sunday, about 3:10 in the afternoon. So through all the weather that we had and through all the high winds that you can probably hear, it's still standing. That's why I do that shelter. I've done that shelter 1,000 times and it's always served me perfectly. Now I learned that shelter, it's sort of a conglomeration of, or a mix of a lot of different shelters that I learned. Now I first learned how to do the tie-off points on a canvas tarp on a video on YouTube by Dave Canterbury. It's one of the first ones I ever saw to do that, and I've used it ever since. And then I think it was IDU321, I believe, who did a video in his backyard with his young son doing a tarp setup where I learned how to do the fold under to create a nice dry bed area, and that kind of stuck with me. Lonnie from Far North Bushcraft, Chris from Prepared Mind 101, and of course Survival Lily, and there's a few others, but the ones I mentioned were the main ones. And so I created this tarp shelter that you saw me do, and I've used it 1,000 times, and it has always served me, and I knew it would serve me well. I just wanted to go see if it was going to hold up, and it has, and which only proves that if you angle your tarp right, you can get ventilation, yet still get adequate protection from high winds, and it'll serve you well in all kinds of weather. And that's one of the points I wanted to make today. A lot of times people, and this is my first video by the way, but a lot of times people will put up a video and everything is perfect and you think that we're all master bushcrafters when nothing could be further from the truth. So I wanted to talk about some of the things that went wrong. Number one, it took me about 8 minutes to put that shelter up. Usually I can get that shelter up in 3 minutes, maybe 4. But the tie-off points that I created with the marble and the twine had come loose. Now usually I prepare that at home before I ever leave. I get things perfectly ready. Thanks Prepared Mind 101 and Chris. But somewhere along the line, a couple of the marbles had come undone and my tie-off points were missing. So I literally had to do that on the fly in the cold with no gloves on. As you recall, it's 19 degrees. And so that slowed me down a little bit. The other thing that was a major miscalculation was that I underestimated how long it would take me to get the fire. Now I knew we had 10 hours of rain, and then I had the 7 inches of snow and the temperatures dropped, so I knew the wood would be cold, wet, frozen, and I would have to process some wood. But I underestimated just how much wood I would have to process in order to even just get a decent Ranger fire to make my coffee. So I would take a log, you know, that big around, and I would baton it down, and I'd try to do whatever I could, and end up with kindling about the size of my pinky. Now, you know how much kindling it takes the size of your pinky to create even just a Ranger fire? Yeah, much less a larger fire. So in the end, I just made sure that I had enough to maintain my Ranger fire, make my coffee, and it was good to go. But it taught me a lesson that I need to, in those kind of situations, understand that I've got to process more. Now, part of the thing with the shelter was that we were going to store wood in the shelter to be processed down. So in the morning when my hands were cold and stiff and the weather was extremely bad, I was already having my supplies, my fire supply, my kindling, my bird's nest, my charcoal, everything ready in a nice dry area to go, and I wouldn't handicap myself by trying to do that in the dark and in the cold and being stiff and hungry and thirsty. And so I learned a lesson that in a situation like what I put myself in Thursday, which really it was a mild situation, but that I needed to just go the extra mile and prepare a little bit more. And so that's kind of a thing. I also wanted to talk about Hicks Law. Now I know a lot of times on these boards and forums and Facebook pages and groups that we all seem to say the more options we have, the better. And there's a little bit of a valid truth to that. But I also want to tell you that that's a faux pas. Had the situation I put myself in, you know, everything was good, really. I just took my Carhartts off and said, hey, here I am in just a shirt and a turtleneck, and it's 19 degrees and I need to protect myself. And that was relatively calm and mild. But had it been an emergency situation, having more options will actually hinder you. See, Hicks Law dictates this, that the more options you have, the longer time or the slower you will be in making a decision and choosing that correct option that's for you. The less options you have, the quicker you will make a decision, the faster you will be to act. And so while there are, you know, 1,000 ways to put up a tarp shelter, and I even print off, I remember one time there was one going around the internet, there was a little card, and it showed as a little animation drawing thing, and it showed 50 ways to set up a tarp for a shelter. And you know what I did with that? I threw it away. I have 3 ways to make a shelter. The one that you see right there that I showed you the other day. One's more of an A-frame, and the other one's more of a like an open, almost like a Wheeling tent style or a modified. You know the one. I know those 3 will serve me in any weather. I can put them up in the dark. I can put them up in the cold, missing a tie point, with no gloves in 19-degree weather. And I know I can get it done. I don't have to worry about, gee, what am I going to do this time? What tent should I use? What shelter? What tie-off point? Should I do a bipole or a middle, you know, a tent peg or a tent pole or you know, or a tripod? Should I hang it from a tree? You know, all those things will slow your reaction time down. So for what it's worth, my opinion, you know what they say about opinions, they're like armpits. Everybody has two and they both stink. But my opinion is this: instead of creating more options, study, look around, study, find the 2 or 3 that work for you 150% of the time. You can do it in the dark, you can do it backwards with your hands tied behind your back. Do that, and they'll serve you forever and ever. And when you ever get into an emergency situation, you won't blink, you won't skip a beat, man. You'll be able to put that up and save your life, or get out of the weather, or just enjoy some camping time. So that's kind of it. You know, I underestimated the amount of wood it would take to get my fire going. I underestimated what would happen if my tarp wasn't ready for staking down and putting up, which did happen, and I had to adapt and work through that in the cold. And then I was glad. The pro to everything was that I'm glad that I had a shelter in my head that I put up 1,000 times, and nothing could deter me from getting that up. It took me a little bit longer than usual, but still 8 minutes is still great, or it's still good. And so, you know, I'm pretty happy with that. Again, thanks to every guy on the boards, the message boards, and Facebook pages that we all visit. Some of the early videos I watched, you know, a year or two ago from Dave Canterbury, and of course Survival Lily and her super shelter camp. Man, what a deal! I aspire to have that over there someday. Lonnie from Far North Bushcraft, Chris from Prepared Minds 101, and a host of others, and James Townsend and company on their 18th century lifestyle and camping and things like that. So I'm just thankful for everyone. So, from north central Indiana, down on the camp by the creek side, I'm Gonzo. And, thanks for hanging out with me, guys, and we'll see you in the bush someday. No coffee.